here.
Thank you, brother. Thank you. Good to be here. Hey, nature photographers, it's Lee Hoy, and I am back this week. I just wrapped up 2 weeks of workshops for my Yellowstone in winter. One was OM only, and one was with the amazing, talented, and creative Lisa Langell. She is on her way home. And last year and this year, I have the privilege of getting to hang out with my incredibly good friend, almost like a brother to me, honestly, Eric Rock, who's another OM System Ambassador. I'm here at his place in Bozeman, Montana. So this is awesome. You are going to get to hear from an OM System Ambassador other than me, which is great. So stay tuned. I'm going to be asking Eric a series of questions. We're going to talk about the OM3 and other OM system related materials. So Eric, thanks for having me here. Looking forward to having you talk with me here in a minute.
Likewise. Yeah, this guy sounds really interesting. Oh, that's me.
I love it. I love it. Howdy from West Texas. I'm Lee Hoy, professional nature photographer, and this is my YouTube channel, Lee Hoy Photography. I'm an OM System Ambassador, photography workshop instructor for Wildside Nature Tours of Precision Camera and Video, and contributing author for the Journal of Wildlife Photography. All right. Well, so Eric, we were talking earlier about the OM3, and just tell the folks a little bit about your first impression of, when you saw the specs. We had a meeting, and they told us about the OM3, and I'd love for you to share some of the things we talked about earlier about it.
Okay, well, I haven't had a chance to shoot it yet myself, but I am excited about it from a couple different angles. And the first one is I'm a diehard Pen F shooter. I've been shooting Pen F since about the first time it came out. For me, it's my urban exploratory camera. I don't take it out in the field. My field camera is when I'm working with wildlife, landscapes, travel, general travel, is the OM1 Mark II. But when I'm walking around town or I'm doing more social type interactions, I pretty much always have the Pen F over my shoulder. And this is kind of a camera that harkens back to the soul of the Pen F, something stylish, fun, and kind of more of a street urban camera to explore with. Yeah. And it goes back to, it kind of captures some of that essence of, just having fun with the camera. So I think we've said it many times that one of the reasons why we shoot OM System is because it's fun, and this kind of keeps it in the fun zone for me. That's for sure.
I think so. I think one of the features that, I know in the meeting we asked, hey, could we get that adapted to the Mark II, was the computational photography button.
Yes.
Where you could press it and select any of the computational features and make adjustments. And I think for the price of the OM3, the features it has, when they first revealed it, I thought, wow, a camera that's in a smaller body with all the same features as the Mark II is a pretty powerful camera. So as a walk-around camera, my first thought was, this is incredibly powerful. We talked about the different design and the build and all that, and you wouldn't really want to use it for wildlife. And I already have so many bodies I talked about. I'm not sure I'm going to get one. Honestly, I want one. Do I need one? No. But Eric, today when we went to dinner, we went out and got some great barbecue. He threw his Pen F over his shoulder, and you had was it the 75 1.8 lens on there?
No, that was the 25 1.8.
25 1.8.
It's not the new one, but that's what I'm excited about, the new 25 1.8.
Yeah, because you ordered, right? Tell them what you ordered.
Yeah, I've got an order. I'm a big fan with the walking around town system. I'm a big fan of the 1.8 lenses. That's kind of what I stepped into when I stepped into, back then, Olympus, now OM. So they're nice and simple and kind of go back to the simple, more fun side of photography. And they're less threatening. You're walking around town, you happen to see something, maybe a scene with some folks in it, you pull a camera up like that up. It's a small lens, it's unassuming, and it feels real good in a social situation that way. So that's why I was excited to see, a weatherproof version of that lens come up, so I can use that.
Yeah,
I'm looking forward to it.
And I haven't owned any of the 1.8, but you certainly got me thinking about what I may or may not be able to do with them. I don't tend to throw my camera over my shoulder every time I go out. Part of it is when I'm running errands out in West Texas, it can take a while. But the reality is, I've driven past Pronghorn at times at Oak Camera and some incredible scenery. And I'm always like, it would be nice to have a camera and lens that just stayed in the truck.
Yeah.
It would be nice to have something like that where I would just leave it out there. I tend to put everything up. I like it orderly. My house is small. I tend to put stuff in bags. And then you go, do I really want to get out? I'm just running to the grocery store. But sometimes just running to the grocery store at my house, that's a minimum of an hour-long adventure. minimum, and I get pronghorn or great hawks, and I'm always like, God, it would have been nice, you know?
Yeah.
So that's something for me to think about, I think. And I know Emily Taupin does the same, and a lot of the OM system ambassadors all do the same. Anything else about the OM3 in terms of first impressions what you were thinking about?
I think it's nice to, again, go back to a more simple body frame or body design that I think in the long run will slide easier in and out of a larger pocket on a jacket or a vest if you're shooting or doing type of travel photography like that, where you want to be able to have something accessible but not outright, showing something off. Although it looks like it will catch some eyes because it is a fancy looking camera. It's very showy, nice looking that way.
Yeah.
And for me, it's not just about travel and everything. I take my camera everywhere. I try to do a photo walk every day when I'm home, when I'm not out leading my own photo tours. And, you ask my wife, she'll tell you my obsession with photography, I call it my passion. I take a camera to the dentist office with me. You never know where you're going to find a photograph. Back when I used to get a haircut, I used to go and take a camera to the barbershop. Actually, I've had a lot of fun opportunities to photograph, just doing day-to-day life things like that. And I'm sure everybody listening at one time or another said, wow, that's really cool looking, or that's really beautiful. I wish I had my camera to grab a shot. Now, I know most people carry a phone, but for me, it's a little bit different. I like to have that real hands-on kind of crafty feel for it that I don't get from a smartphone. I really don't.
It's different. I agree. You can grab a few things, but it's just different.
It doesn't have the heart. It doesn't.
No, it doesn't. No, you're 100% right on that. But I should be better about carrying a camera with me. If I run to El Paso to run errands, I mean, that's a 3-hour drive each direction, and it's through beautiful scenery. And I've missed some storms and some cool skies and stuff like that. Now, I really should be better about that. The thing is, I love the 12-100 on the Mark II, but I don't slide that into a pocket easily. You know
Exactly.
what I mean? It doesn't slide into a pocket.
It's an incredible travel.
It's incredible.
If you're doing a round-the-world cruise or you're just going, to a local amusement park, that's a great setup. But it does have a little bit of
bulky,
size.
Yeah. It's not bulky compared to when we shot Canon or Nikon or whatever, but it's still bulkier than most pockets.
Yeah, and you pull it up, people notice. Nowadays, people, you pull up a smartphone, sure, everybody looks, they're just doing what they do with a smartphone like anybody else does. But, this is kind of a good intermediate. You pull it up and people say, here's somebody who's really into their craft. And maybe it gathers a little bit of respect too.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I'll tell you one thing I'm interested in is they're sending me the new 100 to 400, and I'm going to be in India, which you've been many times. This will be a first for me. So I'm looking forward to giving it a test run. And for folks that have watched my YouTube channel, they know I was not a huge fan of the first 100 to 400. I mean, I know photographers that get great images. Gabriel Lugo, a guy who lives in Puerto Rico and does the Caribbean and the U.S., he works for Wildside Nature Tours. He gets some great bird images. He since moved to the 150 to 400. But Gabriel got phenomenal stuff. But the key was he would shoot close birds. And he was great with it. I taught him how to expose using highlights and using fast shutter speed. And he didn't crop the crap out of his images. And he had nice stuff. But I just know the autofocus on the first one was lacking significantly compared to the 300 and 150 to 400, don't you think?
Yeah, I haven't. I just shot it a few times. Guests had brought it on a trip, and I've asked to borrow it just to get a feel for it. And yeah, I think with those lenses, I think that they're like any time you go back in time to some of the first zooms and things like that. Those margins that you had to work within tend to be you had to be a little bit conscious of not shooting, the far end, and then finessing things like, a tripod's always going to be better. Now with the added image stabilization or sync IS on this, that's going to be a big game changer.
It's going to make a big difference.
So I think with the older version, the 1 to 400, you had to finesse the sharpness, finesse the good images out of it, but it was capable of making it.
It was capable.
But you had to take the time to finesse, where maybe, we've kind of gotten away from that, getting spoiled with some of the great lenses that have come out lately. So this newer version with the Sync IS, I think that'll help up the game quite a bit. Maybe a little less finessing, a little bit more getting those shots when you don't have the time to squeeze the juice out of the lens.
I think a lot of beginning bird photographers who maybe have a limited budget, I'm hoping version 2 is that awesome answer to help them feel more confident in their birding.
I would like to be able to send people there getting into it, because that's a good place to spark that passion. It really is. It's with the reach of that in that particular lens, and it's going to be a way to get people into not just the bird photography, but overall nature photography. You could you can get some great landscapes with long lenses like that too. That's one of my
Yeah,
favorite
that's
things to do.
true. That's true. So I'm curious, what was your first real bird photography lens where you really felt like I've got the reach finally?
Well, I say I've got the reach, but not the quality. It was way back in the film days. I had a 500 millimeter catastrophic lens, mirror lenses,
Uh-huh.
and first trip with it, I think, was to Florida, photographing birds and other wildlife. And oh man, it was great looking through that lens and studying wildlife and looking at the compositions. But the being an fixed f8, in film days, there just wasn't the light most of the time, and it also, when I talk about finessing, you really couldn't even finesse the sharpness you needed out of that. Man, maybe out of 5,000 images, you got one that was like, okay, that has everything, including sharpness. So, but I would say wasn't until later on in full frame days, 300 f4 got you in a range of good wildlife, and then also gave you the sharpness. They were good sharp lenses, just didn't have the 2.8 wide prime that you were thinking of. But those are good starter wildlife lenses.
Yeah,
And that's why that 300 f4 that OM System Olympus makes is still a tried and true lens. We were just talking about that on our way back from the restaurant tonight, about how we were kind of spoiled by that lens and how crisp and sharp, still one of the sharpest lenses made, and how much it brought in it. The 300 millimeters and having the crop, the crop sensor effect of 600 millimeters at f4 was just wonderful.
It was nice.
And it's still a walk around lens for me. When I do a nature walk around here, it's usually over my shoulder just because it's so lightweight and I can go for miles with it.
Coming from the Canon RF 600 f4 version 2 and carrying that thing around. I shot tripod wildlife 95% of the time with that lens.
If you got something off handheld, it was only for a few seconds.
It wasn't
and
long.
You didn't hold on it long, yeah.
No. And so coming from that to the 300 f4 was a huge plus for me. And then coming to the 150 to 400, I mean, I love the 300, but man, I'm just a zoom guy, but I still won't get rid of my 300. I like it particularly if I'm doing high-speed hummingbird stuff in the backyard where I know I can set my lens exactly where I want it. So, yeah, I agree with you. It's both of them are such amazing lenses. I have high hopes for this version 2 of the 100 to 400 for folks. I hope it has. I really do hope the image stabilization just kicks it up a notch for those older bird watchers who want better shots.
Yes.
They're not probably as hardcore as you and I about what they get, but just for the price, if it gets better, it's an even better bargain. That's for sure. So
Agreed.
So Eric, he just wrapped up some Yellowstone and winter workshops. He'd been in Africa. He's going to India too, not long after I do. He goes all over the world. And what are 2 or 3 things you see that photographers do that you feel like if they made a change, they would see instant improvement in the quality of their images in terms of pursuing visually compelling images?
Yeah, I'd have to say first off, the new ability to rely on software. Some of the noise processing software, the sharpening software, but just the noise processing software can give everybody raise everybody's game quite a bit.
It does.
And I think just over the last 2 years, the number of people who become aware of that, or now becoming aware of it, has dramatically improved. And to not have it is to realize you're not really squeezing all the benefits out of your gear, out of your trips, out of your photography.
That's right.
So I'd have to say, overall, it's the processing game. It's changed recently to really up every, I don't know how many people I talk to say, I'm going back to old images and reworking them with this new software.
Yes.
And that's what's really changing the game for them. So I would say overall, that's the first thing. And then after that, I would say, the general nature of the gear being so much better. I mean, jumping into photography, whatever gear you go into, it's just a higher caliber gear overall for the price that you get. Just walking around with most of the lenses we do nowadays, to get that kind of quality back 20 years ago or so, you were shooting a high level pro fast premium glass and a high end DSLR, or actually back in the film days, an SLR. And you really had to focus on what you were doing, where now it's freed you up to focus more on the creative side. The gear is so much better, the technology is better, and then you can lay that back on the software and you're in a much better place. It's really a lot of fun. Even myself, I find myself letting go sometimes and just enjoying this situation. like I think I told you about the diamond dust the other day and the bison in Yellowstone. It was really cold, squeezing that moisture out of the air and just creating this beautiful visual effect. And I was like, you know what, I'm going to go for the feel. And it allowed me to just kind of make it fun, which was really good.
I agree. When I think about, the OM1 Mark II was on sale not that long ago for, I think, $1,900, right? I think that was, and you think about all the special features, all the computational features, the autofocus. Compare that to some other systems and how much you have to pay for cameras that don't even have a fraction of those features.
It's true.
It's really pretty amazing the level of photography you can get to for not that much of an investment compared to some other camera systems. I know you and I were talking about why we're glad to be OM System ambassadors, and jokingly I was saying I'm going to get an OM System ambassador tattoo because even if I was no longer an ambassador, I'm not changing to another system.
Same here.
I know sometimes people do, and they talk about, I have no reason to. I'm not giving up computational feature. I'm not giving up live highlight alerts. I'm not giving up the weight and the cost. So for me, I'm pretty happy with how things have played out. If they never made another lens, I would be fine. And you and I talked about some of the lenses would be cool to have.
Yeah.
Like I know I said on my wish list would be a true wide angle macro. And what was the one you mentioned? I can't remember what.
I'd like to see the 40 to 150 f2.8 upgraded with image stabilization in the lens. I think that would be. I mean, I love that lens. I don't go anywhere on my travels without it because it's my backup lens. I can throw the converters in. They play well together, play magnificently together, and I can always fall back on that if I have an issue and I need another telephoto or something that puts me in telephoto range like that.
That's true. Very true. There's a lot of misconceptions around being an ambassador and how much we make and all the things we get.
We make money on this?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we're getting really rich, aren't we, man, off being ambassadors? What is it? What are a couple of things about OM System as a whole? If you had to pick a few things and say, this is why I'm glad to be an ambassador, what would you tell the folks at home that one? Because trust me, folks, we aren't doing it for the money. There's almost no money in being an ambassador. Yes, as I've said in other videos, we do get some discounts on some gear, not all gear. And we get free repairs, which is really nice, particularly when you're hard on your gear like I am. But make very little in terms of actual cash. I sell gear through my website, but that's me selling the product. That's not OM System giving me money for that. What is it about being an ambassador, for you that you go, man, I wear that badge with pride?
I probably think that I feel like it gives me some credibility when I'm out in the field and people ask me about it, but also it's that backup to say, you know what, I recognize that this gear makes life more fun, a lot easier for photographers, and again, we can put that fun back in photography. So it's nice to have the backup and being recognized as an ambassador just gives me a chance to, and I would say this either way. I would be this type of person either way. And, if people ask me about it, saying pretty much the same thing. It's just this way I feel like I have some backup and credibility to what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Ultimately that's what it is. And like you said, even if I wasn't an ambassador, I'd still be saying the same thing, shooting the same gear, and very happy to be doing it. And so from that standpoint, it's just good to have a company like OM Systems have your back.
Yeah, I agree. I feel the same way about being a part of it. Now, one of the things that I always like to think about, if you could only, for the rest of your life, you could only have one camera body and one lens. One OM System body, or Olympus body, or however old it is, Olympus or OM body, and one lens, and that's all you could shoot with for the rest of your life. What combo you taking?
Ooh, that's a good question. I could be happy. Honestly, I could probably be happy and work with any one of the bodies that OM System or Olympus made. I would say probably right now, the flagship, the OM1 Mark II would have to be it because I just rely so much on wildlife. I didn't rely on wildlife or so, that Pen F is just a nice little thing to have along all the time and be carrying. But if I lived in an urban environment and I didn't have the ability to travel, or if I wanted a street camera to walk around with, I'd slide to the Pen F more because it's so unassuming.
Yeah.
But, and who knows, maybe the OM3 might take that place down the road. We'll see, might come back here and revisit this sometime.
Yeah.
But, I'd say overall with all the travel I do in the wildlife and putting myself out there for night sky photography, aurora, things like that, I'd go with the OM1 Mark II,
Yeah.
just because the overall versatility of it and the ability to handle bigger glass.
Yeah.
Lens-wise, I'd go the same way. Wildlife, I mean, I think I've been saying this for years now, since it's been available. The 150 to 400 at 4.5 is a remarkable, best wildlife lens I've ever seen, ever worked with. I worked with all the Canon big glass in the past and the Prestige glass, but I'll tell you what, that lens covers everything I ever need. Wildlife, and very, very rarely on safari or anything do you need any other lens. So if I was staying with my travels and wildlife-oriented trips, things like that, and it does a really nice job for telephoto landscapes too. That zoom range is so nice for that. I would have to say that would be the one lens. Now,
That's ironic. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that'd be mine too. Because I love landscape. I love night sky. I love macro. But push come to shove, I'm going with the Mark II and the 150 to 400. And because you can do macro, you can still do reptiles, turtles, a lot of frogs, and
even small
big
little
insects.
dart frogs, yeah.
I mean, I've taken pictures of flies in Galapagos, but if you push comes to shove, that's if I can only have one of each. I agree. I think that's what I'd go with.
Yeah.
Yeah. The OM1 would be close, but I do think the faster processing speed of the Mark II. I mean, they're both, the autofocus is
It's hard to tell the
excellent.
difference sometimes.
It really is. Sometimes it's very hard to tell the difference.
But there is an edge. And
There
it
is a
really makes
slight edge, and I believe there's just a little bit more leeway on the dynamic range with the Mark II. So I do think that would be my combo. So it's funny that you said that. I mean, if you're a strict landscape photographer, then obviously your choice is, well, you'd still keep the Mark II for the graduated neutral density filter.
absolutely.
Absolutely. That's a no-brainer. But then what lens comes into play? But I'm like you. I think that would be my combo as well.
Yeah, I think it took, I was really very, very happy with the OM1, the first version. It took a while for me to kind of relinquish that control over and move over to the Mark II, but finally it won me over. And I'm not sure what it was early on, but I was very slow to move over. But now I'm kind of sold on it. That edge that it gives you, it makes a difference.
It does. It really does.
In other words, it makes some of my shots look a little bit better when I need it.
It makes some of the shots look a little bit better. That's
It grabs
very
that
true.
focus a little bit better when I need it. So
Yeah, I agree. I think, one thing we talked about in our meeting, we hear the Facebook gurus and the guys that like to do their big dramatic YouTube videos talk about is OM going away, is Micro Four Thirds is dead, and all the stupid ass videos and headlines and all that crap. But in our meeting, what we realized is just the opposite. It's tearing it up.
I agree.
And we learned some things in our meetings about financials and other things that prove that OM system is not just here to stay, but in some ways it's actually leading the pack on some things. And we heard some results about Google searches and things that really caught my attention. In fact, to the point where I went out and reserved 2 domain names. I reserved OM System Adventures and OM System Workshops. And I've talked, we're at some point, Eric and I will put together where we're both working together on some OM system only stuff. But we were talking, it's so fun to have a group of OM system photographers because we get to talk about all the special features that are unique to us. When you're in the field doing workshops, what are the top 2 computational features or other special features? We talked about the art filter and stuff. What are the top 2 things you use out in the field?
Oh, for me, I'd have to say it's the live neutral density filter. When I'm shooting landscapes, I tend to employ that quite a bit. And to be able to hand hold, with that image stabilization between, say, the 12 to 100 and the OM1 Mark II body is just amazing. Not have to carry a tripod. So I would say it's that live neutral density filter is what I tend to use the most in that regards.
Do you program that to a button, or do you just go into the menu?
It's easy for me to get to in the menu. Very easy. It's
what I like?
It's right there at the top.
You know why I program it at the to a button? Because if you press the button and spin the rear dial, you can then change the density of the filter just by spinning the dial.
Correct.
And I like that.
Yeah, and once you set it in, say, time value or manual, you can switch to a different mode and come right back to it, and it's still there.
Yeah, that's true, and
another
it's still
nice-
there. That is good
so
too.
if I'm in a landscape kind of afternoon or morning, it's easy to shoot that way. Whether I'm on say I'm somewhere in, Caddo Lake or maybe down in Yellowstone, it's real easy to access it.
That's true. That's true. So what was the other special feature you like to use?
So me, I'm a big fan of the picture modes, and and again, it's part of that whole fun factor. But I think that like putting the mode dial or that picture mode dial on the front of the OM3 is a nice way for OM systems to recognize how much that does add to the creative process. I'm a big fan of using on days when I don't have a lot of differentiation in the clouds and things are kind of blah. We dialing in that drama 2 filter that's built into the picture modes.
That's number 10.
Yeah, number 10, the second 2.
10
yeah.
2.
I dial that in and it just really, ups my black and white game. And, I don't necessarily go with that particular JPEG that it kicks out, but what I'll use that JPEG and I'll emulate that with the raw file. I'll go in and make my adjustments, from into a black and white image, pump the contrast, maybe a little dehaze, and it brings out that separation. So it allows me to kind of think about things out in the field when I'm shooting and then bring them into the digital darkroom and bring them about when I'm processing the image. And I think that's a whole lot of fun and from the creative side. So I've always liked shooting black and white, and that's a great way for me to kind of ground myself back in it again without having to worry about, is this going to be a good black and white shot or not? And it allows me to take advantage of a lot of situations where I might not have that thought process going at the time.
Yeah, when you told me about that, I think I was heading to the Faroe Islands, and
Yeah.
I used it quite a bit, and then I used it quite a bit here in Yellowstone, and man, I actually took a JPEG, did a few alterations, threw it on an Instagram story or Facebook story, and was very happy with the results.
I saw that. As soon as I saw it, I said, I know what you did there.
Yeah,
it looked good.
You recognized it, didn't you? And I agree. I think, one thing about the art filters that's really convenient is you can go into the menu and turn off the ones you never use.
Yes.
So rather than sitting and spinning forever,
Yes.
you can just get right to the one you want, and I like that.
You can bracket that too.
Yes,
you can choose whichever. I had a guest on my last trip choose all of them and shoot them as a bracket and look that way. You can look at every single option. It's a great way to learn, but
That is a good way.
I wouldn't do that every single time.
No, it takes a little bit, doesn't it?
Yeah,
That's cool.
Yeah, you can turn off which ones you don't want in that bracket or turn them on, and it's a really cool experience.
That's a cool feature. Yeah. I look forward to playing with that a little more. I'll be curious to see how that dial works with where you grip. Like, are your fingers completely away
it's in a different place in the Pen F.
Yeah,
it's
it
in a
is.
slightly different
So I'll
place.
be looking forward to hold one of those. I don't know.
It's probably in a better place. I think it did get in the way of the fingers on the Pen F. I put on a little extended grip on my Pen F, so it kind of negates. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll get that out
How
sooner
much
or later.
of that do you have? No,
Yeah, not enough.
Got you beat a little.
Yeah, you do. Negates.
If you were to talk about destinations here for a minute, what are some, there's certain destinations that everybody wants to go. Iceland, and they want to go do, if you think about hot spots, doing the Pantanal for jaguars is a hot spot.
Yeah.
There's certain places that get hot and everybody wants to go. And what are some places, one or two, that you've gone or been in the past that really not many people go to, but you go, man, this is a spot they really should get to?
Oh, those out of the way little places, for nice culture, wildlife, landscape destination. Place you don't hear talked about too much is Newfoundland.
I love Newfoundland.
Whether you shoot color or black and white there, the coastlines, the seascapes, everything has such a nice mood to it. And plus you can shoot puffins, you can photograph moose. I mean, I shouldn't say shoot, but photograph puffins.
Well, just shoot.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Photograph moose.
You're on a Texan YouTube channel. It's okay to say
gannets. I mean, it's just a great place for bird life, but also just the nice quiet countryside and seascapes, seashore.
I spent a Christmas and New Year's up there.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
the
people
come down. I call it Texas of the North. I got invited into more homes for children from strangers. It's very different than, say, Western Canada to me. There's no other province like it. Yeah. I agree. I've never been in summer. I'd love to get up there in summer.
Oh, it's stunning.
I'd love to do a winter workshop. Rare birds coming in. The Eurasian widgeon just walking around parking lots. I found a pond.
Plenty of eiders.
Oh, the eiders. I found a pond on the university campus that had 23 tufted ducks. One was leucistic. It was just an amazing place. And people don't talk about it much.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree. That's a great first choice.
Yeah. And
what's another one like that?
Oh, go back to my roots in Alaska. I would say Nome. Nome is for a bird wildlife destination without the crowds and plenty of room to explore around. It's every time I go, it's not. And my first trip there was actually in January of what was that, 1990, I think it was.
January.
Yeah, it's my first time there. And even there, when everything was covered in snow and you didn't have many places you could go because of the roads being closed because of winter, it was still a fascinating place, and it still holds that magic for me. Just mainly because you have all that to explore and not a whole lot. You have to be a little bit, have to know what you're doing because it's a lot of open country, and you can get out from town and develop an issue. But once you know what you're doing, where you're going, and know where things are at, it's a great place to explore with the camera. And the light is all that. Anytime you get in high latitudes like that, the light is just magical for the better part of the day.
Little flowers all over the tundra.
The carpets,
and the birds are. I agree. I don't do a workshop right there because Elise Bender and Jennifer Lee and Dawn Wilson do a workshop up there for Wildside, so I don't want to compete with friends. But I tell you what, Nome is probably in one of my top 5 destinations of all time. Nome and the Pribilofs, what a great combination.
Perfect place to expand and explore out into.
Yeah. All right, so people who are fairly new to OM system, what's a piece of advice? What's something you'd say to someone that's new to the system? There's a lot to learn. You're frustrated because there's so much going on. What's some advice you'd give to some folks that are new to OM system, or even folks that are thinking about switching?
I'd say sit down with one of us. I mean, whether it's online or in person or a workshop or a photo tour, sit down with us. The little bit of time you take up front to familiarize yourself with what the camera's about and how to do it, and set it up, just talk through what you think you'd like for settings, and then it's plug and play. You really don't have to make many changes from that point on. And if you do, you can put those in the custom settings and just move on your mode dial from the different custom settings for different things you want to do, or put it in your My menu and get to it easy. It's such a programmable system. You can set it up however you want to be as simple as possible. You can make it as complicated as possible too, which I've done. Trust me. Early on, I fought it, and I went through all the menus and I changed everything. Every time I thought I wanted to change, but really set it up the way you want. Take the time, and then from there on, go out and shoot, because it really is a lot easier than what it seems. And especially with the new menu system, we didn't even know. We don't mention the things that don't sound that sexy anymore, do we?
No.
Whether it's the dust, the dust control functions of the camera and how little we have to deal with dust.
How little we clean the sensor.
Yep. And then, but also switching to the menu system. It took a while to get that through, but this new menu system in the OM cameras.
Compared to an EM1X menu.
Yeah, exactly. And I go back to that every now and then when I have to adjust somebody else's camera or walk them through something, or I've got a Mark III
and
here.
I thought the EM1X was pretty decent. And then I got my own one. I'm like, holy cow.
Yes.
This is incredible.
Yep. Yeah. And, I have a Mark III switched over for infrared.
Oh, okay.
And I have it set up for infrared. And every now and then, I don't have to go into the menu very often because it's in infrared for sure. But when I do, it's like, oh, wait a minute, I got to think back to my younger years, which were only a couple years ago.
That's very true. Very true.
Yeah, but this new menu system is a lot easier for almost anybody to navigate.
It really is. Even though there's a lot, my biggest piece of advice is just stick with it. You can't master a tool that has that many features in just a week or two. You can start getting comfortable with certain things, but I think my biggest thing I notice is Americans, our culture is all about a we want it now society. I mean, order Amazon and it's here in a few hours, or hey, I order food and it's here in 20 minutes or less, and we want to master wildlife or landscape photography in 20 minutes or less, and it's just not realistic. You have what I like to say is there's a big difference between complex and complicated, and our menus are complex because they do many things. Mm-hmm. But they're not complicated.
Fair enough.
That's a huge deal to realize that just because something is complex does not by its nature make it complicated.
Fair enough.
It's intimidating because they're big. I get that. It is intimidating because it does a lot. But if you just tackle the important things at the front and master as you go, it becomes a lot more manageable.
Well, and one thing I'll help you manage that right away is, like I mentioned, setting up the custom settings and the mode dial. And then also the My menu. I mean, if there's something you're going back to a lot, put it in there and you go right to it. You rarely have to get out of that.
That's right. That's right.
You drop down, select it, and you're good.
The hard thing for people, I think, with the custom menu, when I was writing the program for my mentorship program, where did I put custom modes? Everybody wants to do one early on.
Yes.
But then I was like, I can walk anybody through programming custom. I can program an entire camera. I've timed it. I've programmed one in under 2 minutes. I mean, I know the menus like crazy. I can just bam, 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 bam. But what people have to do is understand, why do I select this particular
Yes.
menu item to save to a custom. I ended up putting custom modes at the very end of the mentorship program. And the reason I
Yeah.
did that is I want them to get, the point of the mentorship program is to get you where you're programming your own custom modes. Now they might call me during one of their private Zoom meetings early on, and we might walk through it and set it up for a trip, but
Right.
they don't have that comprehensive understanding of why did I choose this.
Exactly. That's a good
and over
point.
time, so it's good to go ahead and save stuff. You know what I tell people who are new? Once they get their settings the way they like it, at whatever level of development that is, save it, whether you're a manual mode shooter or an after priority mode. You're not shooting shutter priority though, damn it. If you're manual after priority, save those settings to a C1 as an oh crap. And that way, if you accidentally change something in
Yeah.
manual and you don't know what you did, you can turn it to C1 and go back to shooting.
It saves your bacon in a second in a pinch, and you're good to go.
And really, I tell people it's better to actually shoot in the custom one, because then if you mess something up, you can always turn the camera on and off and it's back to the default, assuming
Yes.
you don't
Yep.
use the save every setting, which you never should. But that's one of the, I call it the oh crap custom mode. When you're early on and you don't know why you want C1, C2, C3, C4.
Maybe we need an OC setting on that dial. That would be a good.
The oh crap mode.
Yeah.
You know, that would be a good one, wouldn't it? What does that do? That's your oh crap button right
We
there.
could stencil it in there, scratch the old one off and stencil it in there.
That would be a good one.
OC1.
OC1. Oh crap. So those are some things I tell people, that you're not going to master an OM1 or an OM1 Mark II, and even the OM Mark III, the OM3 now. You're not going to master that in a week or two. But to me, that pursuit is a part of what makes photography
It's
fun.
the learning process,
It
and how to
is.
squeeze the juice out of each one of those settings, and which one's going to work in each environment you're in, or whatever shooting situation. Absolutely.
I think people think if they buy gear that's just like what you and I own, they're going to stand beside us and capture the same type of images. That's not realistic. I could go buy a paint set, and I could remember Bob Ross, the
With the
painter
happy
on the
tree,
PB,
happy clouds, yeah.
cloud. Man, I could buy everything and stand next to him, and I'm not a painter. I have no skill in that. I could buy all the exact same gear he has, and my paintings aren't going to look the same because he's a master at it, or was, and I'm not a master painter. So it takes a while, and I think people need to learn to develop the understanding that the pursuit of that is a big part of photography.
Agreed. And within that is getting comfortable with your gear that frees you up to be creative. And I think that's the big push that OM Systems working for, is making this creative process much more accessible to everybody.
That's
Whether or
right.
not you have an innate creative edge to it, or if you want to develop that, I think that's where we're going. And that's we're talking about earlier on in this discussion about how the confidence in OM Systems. I think that says a lot for them. If they're concentrating, they're not worried about racing for the tech, because they've been out there leading on so much. Just now they're helping people be comfortable with that and be on the creative side. That's a real good place to be.
It is. I remember when I sent me the EM10 Mark IV, and my first thought was, why did I get this body to test? Like, this is a big entry level. This is not what I and they said, well, shoot it like tourists. And I thought, hell no, I'm shooting it the way I shoot. I did high-speed hummingbird. I did star trails. I mean, I did all the same
holds
stuff I
up.
do. You know what? I was like, I'm pretty impressed, you know. And I think the OM3 is actually a big leap ahead from the M10 Mark IV for the same kind of people in many respects. That now you have all the same features in this simpler body. And
retro, don't forget retro.
In the retro mode, I agree. A lot of people love that retro mode.
Yeah.
And I think OM, I mean, as an ambassador, you and I talked about this, we're both very happy with the direction that OM is heading. And we love the gear that's coming out. We love to see the steps. We love to see what's happening. We both agree the firmware update process got to be fixed. We talk about that, and we know that's no surprise to y'all. And it's pretty cool when your only complaint about your system is one thing like that. Everything else we absolutely love.
Yeah, I know when people get on the forums and stuff like that, we start talking about things like that, or they complain about. If people are complaining about battery life, there's nothing else. That's when you hear when everything else is so good that they have to look at, the battery life could be low.
And I have great luck with batteries.
I'm not criticizing OM batteries.
No,
when people on the forums are criticizing, that's all they have to worry about.
That's all you have.
Yep.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, I agree. Well, guys, listen, if you don't know, Eric is a photography workshop instructor for Joseph Van O's Safaris, and he goes all over the world. Phenomenal educator, phenomenal photographer, and even better, he's a phenomenal guy. Like, it's bad for me to hang out with him because then how mean I am comes out, and he's such a good guy. So if you don't follow him on social media, Eric, what's your Facebook?
Oh, what is my Facebook? I
Is
don't
it
even.
Eric Rock? I think.
Yeah,
isn't
it's
it?
just Eric
It's
Rock.
Eric Rock, ROCK.
Yeah,
But
you'll see me there.
But your Instagram handle is that Photo
Eric,
Tour Leader?
no, it's Eric S. Rock.
Eric S. Rock.
ERIC-S-ROCK.
Okay.
You'd think I would use that.
Sounds like a rock star.
This guy sounds really cool. I'd like to travel
Yeah,
with him.
you should.
Wait a minute.
Yeah, you should hang out with him.
Yeah,
some.
I'm looking forward
He's
to
a
it.
good guy. So, guys, listen, man. Follow him on social media. Join him out in the field sometime. He and I are going to try to put together some home system only stuff.
If you see me out there anywhere, hey, say hi. Stop, have a cup of tea with me. Whatever you want to do, it'd be fun to catch up.
This is tea.
Yeah,
it's sort of tea. Faded tea.
Good earth
tea.
tea.
Good earth tea. Yeah. So, guys, hey, you know how much I appreciate you being a part of my online community. I'm so glad, thankful for Eric. We've been sitting around shooting the crap all day, and here he is taking time in his evening to record this for you. So, hope it was beneficial. Like I always say, get out in the field and go capture some visually compelling images. You guys have a good one.
Take care, everybody.